Okay, we're getting organized, we're coming together, it's happening.
I think everyone is in from the, oh, one more person coming in from the waiting room.
Okay.
Jesus.
Is that it, Rebecca?
I think that gives us 11 of the 17,
Okay.
which is pretty close to a quorum. And, oh, and here comes one more. So yeah, let's go ahead and start.
Well, you know what we can do is while we're gathering, do you want to do a quick go round of intros just to see who's what and say hello, or
I was going
dispense with it? You're going to do that later?
I was going to do that in a little bit so we can make
Yeah.
sure that as many people as we're going to be here, we're here.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll just I'll say hello to everybody then. So hi, I'm Dan Yeager. I'm the executive director of NEMA, and I want to welcome you to this terrific workshop series. This is really a very meaningful one for a number of reasons. I think just a little bit of background on me. The importance of disaster planning hit home to me actually. I'm forgetting now how many years ago it was, maybe 13 or 14 now. When I was the director of a small museum in Waltham, Massachusetts, Charles River Museum of Industry and Innovation. And life was just ducky for the longest time there. And then all of a sudden we had this incredible rainstorm, and I realized why we called ourselves the Charles River Museum of Industry and Innovation, because we were literally on the banks of the river. The museum flooded, and I will never forget walking around literally on the floor of the museum in my fly fishing waders, with the water probably at least knee deep. And it was a moment in time that was, of course, panic and like, what do we do? And we had absolutely really zero plans for it. And I learned very quickly the hard way about emergency management and disaster planning. And shortly after that, when I became the director of NEMA, it really became a top priority of mine to really encourage museums to do the work of disaster planning, to not put it off, and to really understand what their physical facilities and their collections and everything that's at risk with what can possibly happen. And I certainly recognize that it's one of those things like life insurance that you kind of put off and I don't need it, whatever. It's not until you need it, right? And that's so this is very important. And congratulations to y'all for actually stepping up and doing it. Another piece of, I got really familiar with this after being the director of NEMA. We are still involved with COSTEP in Massachusetts. And I was actually on the board of the Northeast Document Conservation Center. And so I'm really understanding there. And then also my involvement with AIC and all the great work that they're doing. The resources that are available to us as a museum community, and they continue to grow. They continue to deepen, and the importance is certainly there. So this is something that I really appreciate, the fact that that FAIC and has reached out to us to offer this to you. One additional thing that I just want to point out is that NEMA is very involved right now in the whole discussion of climate change and environment, and that's another thing that's really hit home to me. We, as a matter of fact, are changing our value statement right now to include the existential impact of climate change on museums and their collections. And we're working that out right now, which we'll probably have official in the next couple of months. But it shows our commitment to the the whole dialogue of what climate change actually means. We also were recently awarded an IMLS leadership grant to do further study of the impact on climate of museums. And so that's underway as well. And all of this is to say that the need for museums to pay attention, to be aware and understand the existential issues of climate change. And I'm imagining that some of what your discussion is going to be over the coming weeks as well. It's very important to us, and we're really happy to host this. So Rebecca, I got to know a little bit when she presented at our conference this current year. So we're really terrific that she's your presenter, and I'm very happy that you're all here as well. And I'm going to turn it over to Tiffany now for a little info on FAIC and some of the housekeeping things and so forth. Anyway, hope you have a great group of sessions, and encouraging you all to really participate to the max. So thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Hi, everyone. I'm Tiffany Amig. I am the Programs and Operations Director at FAIC and AIC. And we are very excited to be able to partner with NEMA to offer this, this course, and excited to play around with this online discussion content as well. I wanted to make sure you all were aware that FAIC was able to offer this because of support from the Institute of Museum and Library Services. IMLS has been very supportive of our efforts on outreach. FAIC, if you're not familiar, we offer a lot of programs in support of preservation and conservation, and obviously emergency preparedness and response is a huge part of that, and is unfortunately a growing concern, as Dan said, because of the climate crisis. And I wanted to just take a minute to go through the learning platform. I'm going to share my screen here. I know that it looks like from the back end that many of you have already accessed this. And obviously, if you're here, you've found us somehow, hopefully through the platform. But just in case, I want to just take a minute to go through and show you the online course. You should have already seen something that looks like this. The course platform will walk you through each of the resources associated with the course. So in each week, right here, you'll see at the header, week 1, you'll have your readings. To access those readings, you can download them using the yellow button. Moving down, you'll have your recorded lecture each week, which we ask that you view in advance of the course session. Rebecca's provided the slides for this week. There are some discussion questions. We really encourage you in advance of the course session to go in and just engage in this way, have a little bit of discussion with your classmates to talk about your viewpoints on these discussion prompts. Then you'll find the link for each session. You should get a reminder email for that has the link to the live session each week, but you can always come back to the course webpage and access it this way. Mine looks a little different from yours because I'm a manager, but you'll have your access button here to join. And moving down, as you click on these little plus notes, you'll get next week's content as well. We were just discussing, it's not visible here, but if you attend all of the classes and view the lectures each week and engage in at least some of the discussions, at the end of the class, you will have an additional item in the platform that will allow you to download a completion certificate, just showing that you have completed the course. But do make sure that you've met all of those requirements in order to get the certificate. And just in general, if you have questions about the course platform or any of the content, or have any trouble accessing the Zoom meeting each week, please just send me an email. I'll put my email in the chat right now so that you have it. Rebecca's the one to talk to about course content, but if you have platform related questions, please let me know. And I hope you have a great course and learn a lot and find it engaging, and we welcome your feedback afterward as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. And I'm just going to piggyback a little bit onto that and say that with the discussion questions, I didn't have a brilliant way to set it up in the learning platform to make this clear, but before class, any things that you would like to discuss in class, if you would get those in before class, so I have a chance to, think about them because I'm planning on structuring these in-person meetings with a great deal of focus on those questions that you all are working through. So the more of that you give me, I think the more helpful it will be for you. And then the other question, or a couple weeks have a couple of questions, are things that you can answer over the course of the week. You know, if we think that our week runs like Monday to Sunday, if you watch the lecture and read, or watch the lecture, read, and none of the readings are too onerous, I don't think, before the lecture, and then everything else you can do over the course of the week while you are also hopefully working on getting your plan made. My hope is that by the end of this 8 weeks, that's sufficient time for you to write the plan, and we're making a space for you to do that. So I thought the first thing that we would do this morning is just go around the room and find out who everyone here is. If you have already watched the lecture, you probably know more about me than you care to. But I'm Rebecca Elder. I am down here in Austin, Texas, where it is a little chillier than we would like this morning. And I do a lot of emergency preparedness work, including working for the National Heritage Responders, which is another project of the Foundation for Advancement in Conservation. And you'll get to hear much more about them, I think, in our third lecture. So why don't I'm gonna just like call on people from as they go on my screen. But if you would tell me and your classmates what your name is, where you are, how far, if you have done any emergency planning in the past, or if you are just getting started, any good emergency stories that you have that you want to share. I hope we can all agree that this room is a safe space and we won't go telling stories about emergencies that other people have had, but it's nice to feel like you're not alone if you've had emergencies. So Sarah, you are the first person on my screen, so you are up.
Okay, well, good morning, everyone. I'm Sarah Patton Zarelli. I work with Museum Insights. We're a small consulting firm that does a lot of work with pre-design facilities planning for museums. And so I'm here partially because I have been fascinated by emergency response for a long time, was involved in it, and other museums I've worked at, but also because a lot of our clients are thinking about, as we design a new building or put on an expansion, how can we make this the best for our collections? And that also includes thinking about the things you don't want to think about, like when there's water or you're next to a railroad station, and all kinds of scary things could happen. So I'm really excited to learn from everyone here today and hear about your stories and your museums. I'm located in Massachusetts, right outside of Boston. And I guess I would say the one kind of funny emergency story I have is that when I was working at the Old Manse in Concord, Massachusetts, I was involved in a car accident. And it was very minor, but they insisted on taking me and everyone else to the hospital. And the EMT was passionate about old houses. And it actually opened up a really important dialogue with the fire department that started a relationship that turned out to be really, really valuable and created some changes in how we approached emergencies. So, you know, not a great day, but it did come out with some good things for some other folks. And I think that's it, right, Rebecca?
I think that is excellent. That is a great story. I am a big proponent of becoming buddy-buddy with your fire department in particular. There are lots of advantages for everybody, but also I'm really excited to have your perspective because I have never really had the opportunity to be on the ground floor of building something and thinking about emergency preparedness. So I am excited to tackle that.
Cool.
Welcome. Next, Chloe.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Chloe Zog. I'm Associate Director of the Mass Art Museum. We're based in Boston, and the museum is housed on the campus of Massachusetts College of Art and Design. So we are a university museum at a state college. For those of you who don't know, probably most of you, we existed as university galleries for 20 years or more than 20 years. I did a complete renovation of a historic building and opened to the public in February of 2020. 2 weeks later, we shut down due to the pandemic and just reopened in October. We did build a new space. We did a lot of talking about sprinklers and things and plans. We worked a lot. I think we're unique, or at least different than a lot of institutions in the sense that we have campus police, which are also state police because we're a state college. So we did a lot of work with them. Some of the questions that I'll have moving through this process is how to interface with a host institution who has their own facilities and administration and whose priorities might be different than ours. So we started some emergency planning before the pandemic, and then everything shut down. The college is the priority. So while I am really excited to do this, the college might not be ready to handle this till the summer when there's no students on campus. And right now they're very concerned with just getting classes up and running. I don't have any fun emergency stories, and I hate to jinx myself, so I'm gonna leave it at that.
Excellent. Yes, everyone, if you have not had an emergency yet, you are in a waiting game. So, but I hope that your emergency won't be dramatic when it happens. And I am thrilled that you are here. Next is Carla.
Hi, I'm Carla Caniff. I'm at the Cape Ann Museum. We're an art and history museum in Gloucester, Massachusetts. And we actually have an emergency planning document that's probably about 7 or 8 years old now. And since it was written, we have built and filled a new collection storage center. So we thought it was probably time to update our plan, maybe do an even better job this time, but we also need to include 2 facilities now. So it's a little bit more complicated.
That's exciting that you have a new facilities management space and collections management space. And yes, that definitely means that it's time for a significant upgrade. So I am thrilled to have you here. And next on my screen is Derek.
Morning, everyone. So I'm Derek Heidemann. I'm the Director of Collections Research at Old Sturbridge Village. We are taking this class because a couple of us here in the group, they're taking this class because we are wanting to revitalize the disaster plan that we have in place. Right now, disaster planning has really been something that has been kind of the purview of our operations department. So although we have a very detailed disaster plan dealing with how to deal with tornadoes and floods and all that, it hasn't really pertained exactly to what the museum collection is going to be doing in response to all these things. So, so we're looking to update that. I guess our funny story, if you want to call it that, involving an emergency happened this past year. Partially due to the fact that we have, aside from our collection storage facilities, we have several of those that are located throughout the property here. Of course, we also have all of our historic buildings, which present some very interesting challenges in terms of keeping objects in there and just the preservation of the buildings themselves with environmental changes and the rest. So we had an issue with one of our historic buildings that did have objects in it and lots of reproduction as well, largely because of the fact that we had actually shuttered the building because of COVID-19. And we're not actually having it open to the public, which led to a whole bunch of environmental concerns inside the space. Once the building was finally opened again after a really rainy, hot, humid summer that we had here in Massachusetts, we noticed that we had some pretty aggressive mold bloom in various parts of the house. So we've been treating that and dealing with that. So we are on top of it, and I think that we responded well, but we did not have a plan in place for really how to go about it. So we want to formalize more of that plan going forward.
Awesome. I am so happy that you are here, and you are not alone in having pandemic related emergencies. I worked with a client who not in your region, who had a lot of deferred maintenance on their building, and when they closed up for several months, the rodents got into their collections. So that was fun. It could have been so much worse, but they learned a lot about deferred maintenance. Next I see on my screen is Jason.
Good morning. My name is Jason Frederickson. I'm with Bennington Museum in Bennington, Vermont. I run visitor services in the store, so it's kind of interesting being involved in this because I'm one of the legs of emergency planning and also run the museum on the weekends. So that's one of my purposes for being here. We have a document that has been in place for many years, but it's really sad and lacking on any info. So we're working on a document because of reaccreditation again in 2 years. So we're starting that legwork. So this is part of that requirement as well. So it's kind of multifaceted. And I think I can share that I've had many emergencies in various iterations of my life in the hotel world with 14 years in hotel management. So coming to the museum, I thought things would be much more detailed and so on, yet not here. The funny little story is that we all got locked down in March of 2020 or so, I think it was. Anyway, so we were reopening just the store for July 1st. And June 30th, I was here getting prepared, and all of a sudden I have this much water, which is about 6 inches, flowing through my back room, my storage, my front office, and the lobby, including 3 galleries and our office space. We had a very big rainstorm, and the storm drain system came up through the floor. Yay, welcome to reopening during a pandemic. The irony is that it actually fried our fire system and our alarm system as well. So we, thankfully, insurance gave us 2 new complete setups, but we're still in the process of dealing with all that. It doesn't go away.
That sounds like it was not a fun surprise. And yes, you are right that the recovery process can take a very long time, but I'm glad that you got new alarms out of that and a new sprinkler out of that.
Yeah, I mean, the money side of it would have been very challenging to replace them anyway, given that they were all from the 80s and 70s, roughly.
So they had reached the end of their useful life. Did the collections get any? Did the collections generally
No, thankfully we're built into a hill, and they're on the second, so it all flowed down.
So it could have been so much worse, yes, but no fun. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm so glad.
The lesson out of this is don't store items in your storage on the floor.
Oh, yeah. Everything should be at least 4 inches off or 6. Yeah, even if it's not museum collections, 4 to 6 inches buys you a lot of time. Awesome. Thank you, Jason. I'm so glad that you are here. And Robin, is that your museum on your backdrop?
It is. I'm not currently in that building because it's way too cold, but yes, that's my main hall. So my name is Robin Sherman. I am the curator and director of preservation at Castle in the Clouds in Moultonborough, New Hampshire. And emergency planning for us, we kind of have bits and pieces here and there. It was something that was kind of in the hands of our facilities team and kept getting pushed to a back burner because they had 1,000 other things going on. In my time here at the castle, I've experienced a number of small emergencies. The one that really struck home for me was in 2018. We had a storm in the spring that ripped half of the roof off of our sun porch. So we kind of put a temporary fix on that while we were waiting for the insurance money to come through, and fall came around and a storm came that ripped the good half of that roof off. So we lost like the entire roof that year. So that was just one of those things that bad situation. So I sat in on Rebecca's webinar during NEMA, and I heard about this course, and I said, I need to do that. Just put something together, get an emergency plan in the works to be able to hand off to our board and finally have something whole and in one place in place.
Oh, awesome. I am so glad that you are here. And yes, having bits and pieces that are out of date, not ideal, but hopefully everyone after this will have something that is complete that they can update every 6 months or a year instead of reinventing the wheel every 5 or 10 years. That's the goal. So thank you so much for being here. That is so beautiful. I keep threatening to come up and visit a friend who lives in New Hampshire. Maybe this will make it actually happen because I can visit you too.
Absolutely. I'd love to show you around.
Fantastic. Charlie, hi. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. I'm Charlie Cruz, the collection manager at the Fitchburg Art Museum. We're in Fitchburg, Massachusetts, Central Mass. Let's see, the reason why I decided to do this is because many reasons. One, the pandemic has kind of showed that we have quite a few new people in the museum, and it looks like a lot of people don't really know much of security. Like, no one's aware of a lot of things that needs to be done at the museum when it comes to this kind of stuff. And we have a collection that we've tripled in the last 5 years, and we're planning on building a new collection space. So our collection plan, like Robin's, is very hodgepodgey bits and pieces and super outdated. So it was decided to do this and get it going.
Awesome. I am so happy that you are here to do that. And tripling your collection is a huge accomplishment and responsibility. So welcome. Hi, Edith.
Hi, I'm Edith Stablecki from the Paul Revere House. I'm the curator. We're in Boston on the Freedom Trail. We did a plan, or my coworker did a plan in 2008 for one of our reaccreditations. And so it's pretty old and doesn't have a lot of information about actually how you actually salvage collections. It has a lot of stuff in it, but not enough about what to do, what to do with the collections when you get down to brass tacks. We've been very fortunate. We haven't had much in the way of emergencies. We opened a visitor center, a building we renovated, and it opened in December of 2016. It's behind the Revere House. And we did have water flowing out of a sort of an AC unit, kind of a fan. Something went wrong. And when people got in the morning, there was water on the floor, and it didn't affect collections, and everybody mobilized and did what they needed to do. And I came in and they said, oh, there's water in the building. Unfortunately, that wasn't a crisis. We ended up calling ServPro, because we had moisture in the walls and it was dripping from the ceiling. And but it ended up being all right. But fortunately, yeah, we really need more information in the plan about what you actually do when something goes wrong. And AAM is reaccreditation in October. So we need.
So this is a good time to get this in place.
Yes.
I am thrilled that you are here. And I'm glad that when you had that happen to you, that collections weren't affected. But yes, sometimes for some things, like most disasters you will experience in your life are small water disasters. But when they are bigger, there is absolutely nothing wrong with calling in somebody who has specialized expertise in dealing with buildings, for example, to help you. I would not expect you to be able to just dry out your whole building all by yourself in a big disaster. Thank you for being here. Next person I see is Allison.
Hi, everyone. My name is Allison Kreitz. I'm the manager of exhibitions and interpretive engagement at the Southern Vermont Arts Center. We're located in Manchester. We're Jason's neighbor, about 30 minutes north of Bennington. I would say that myself and my colleagues, we have pretty minimal exposure to disaster planning. We don't currently have a plan. We have scraps of paper posted at different entrances and exits with a few people's numbers, you know, the first in line to call in case of an emergency, but certainly doesn't leave us feeling confident. And I think the real eye opener was we've been going through the museum assessment program through AAM. And part of that is taking a hard look at what inventory you have in place and if you have a plan or don't have a plan. And I think that really woke us up and has led to my enrolling in this course. Our campus has 5 buildings, so I was particularly interested in Robin's question in the discussion board about how to think about building a plan to accommodate multiple buildings. And ours range from a historic home that was built in 1918 all the way to a more modern museum space that was built in 2000. I will say it was designed by an architect from Florida and has not thrived in Vermont winters. So there are definitely some budding facility issues with that building in particular. So I think that's enough about kind of my context, but really excited to learn from everyone here and to develop a plan that can serve SVAC moving forward.
Okay, I am thrilled that you are here, Allison. Welcome. Yeah, and I have on my list to answer the question about multiple structures, but I think Robin was on the right track when she suggested an umbrella plan with sections for each building, but I'll say that in more detail in a few minutes. Catherine, hello, how are you?
Hello, I'm well, thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Catherine Fecto. I'm the assistant curator at Old Sturbridge Village. I'm one of the 3 villagers here. And as Derek mentioned, we're fortunate to have a campus-wide plan in place, thanks to our operations department. But I was excited for the opportunity to come up with something that is more focused directly on our collections and preserving and protecting those. I will say that in addition to our mold house, I'm in charge of pest management in the collections buildings, and I have twice now encountered termites in our buildings, and it's always on a Friday, and it's always around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Which fortunately both were dealt with very quickly, and there was minimal damage, but bugs, man. So yeah, very, very excited to be here and to learn.
It is always weekends and holidays. I know there's been at least 4 4th of Julys that I can think of that I've spent on the phone with somebody talking them through an emergency. So I sympathize, and I'm glad that there was not a lot of termite damage, but also thank you for bringing up that it's not just, you know, fire and water, but insects are also something that's definitely part of the emergency universe. So welcome. And Rebecca, you have an excellent name.
Why, thank you. I am Rebecca Bell. I am collections manager and curator of textiles here at Old Sturbridge Village. So I'm the 3rd villager here. And I don't have a lot to add in terms of what we're looking for in terms of a disaster plan. Catherine and Derek really covered that. We're really looking to bolster it in response to collections in particular, but knowing that it's part of a wider campus-wide operation. But I do have kind of funny, not funny disaster story, talking about things happening when people are away. I made the mistake of getting married and going on a honeymoon, and came back after a lovely honeymoon in Scotland to find out that one of the buildings had caught fire. Thankfully, not very badly. The bulk of the damage was mostly smoke damage to the objects in the house. So it could have been a lot worse thanks to the kind of swift action of our security team. They caught it overnight. A spark had kind of ignited in the bake oven that we had in one of our historic houses. But I came back from my honeymoon all jazzed and ready to go and found out we'd had a fire. So into emergency mode. Incidentally, too, my husband is now a firefighter, and he was very excited when I started talking about ICS and the structure of command, because he had to go through that whole course too.
Excellent. You already have a relationship with your fire department. That's awesome. It must not have been fun to come home and find a fire. Maybe you're lucky that they didn't call you to tell you. But welcome. I'm really glad that you're here. And I love that there are 3 people here from Old Sturbridge Village, because your team is already mostly in place, which is awesome. Katie, hi there.
Hi, morning, everyone. I am Katie Barker. I'm Director of Finance and Operations at the National Sailing Hall of Fame. We moved up from Annapolis, Maryland to Newport, Rhode Island in 2019, purchased a historic building right downtown Newport, which was built in 1894 for the Rhode Island Militia. It's called the Armory Building. And we have since completely renovated and restored it, restored all the historic woodwork, hinges on the doors, tried to keep a lot of the original character. We're just completing renovation and restoration. We took a little bit of a pause for COVID. We were supposed to open in May of 2021. We pushed it back a year. So we are opening May of 2022, May 6th. So we're just in the planning, building out of all the exhibits. Our gift shop is being built out as we speak. So we're just in those planning phases and the lead up to opening. So no disaster stories yet, but we are located directly on Newport Harbor. So I feel like there's a chance for, something to happen at some point.
I'm sure there is. And even if it's not the harbor, it'll be something. But how exciting to get to open a brand new museum. I'm very excited for you. Thank you so much for being here. Abby, hi.
Hi there. I'm from Historic Beverly. I'm the Associate Director for Collections here. Historic Beverly has 3 historic houses. 2 are within a third of a mile from each other. And those 2 buildings are 2 blocks from the ocean. And then our 3rd property is about 1.25 miles away from the other 2 structures. So since I arrived here in 2017, it's been a goal of mine to get some form of emergency planning in place. And now that we have an absolutely dynamic board and I have a wonderful collections committee who are movers and shakers, I'm taking the opportunity to tap into them. They've wanted to do this. And so our goal for this year, as part of our strategic plan that was just newly written, is to actually complete an emergency preparedness plan. So it's exciting for us.
I am so happy to hear that you have an engaged and excited board.
Yes.
Emergency preparedness is not always everybody's idea of the most exciting and glamorous topic. I love it, but having that engagement behind you is going to make your life so much easier. And I'm thrilled to hear that that's going on in your life. So welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, Sheila.
Hi, everyone. Sheila Ruby from the Cape Ann Museum in Gloucester, along with my colleagues Carla and Nick. So we do have as Carla had mentioned, we do have a disaster plan that we started in 2016 when we were working on accreditation. Since then, as she mentioned, so we have actually 9 total buildings, 3 historical houses, and now we just built this, state-of-the-art collection facility. So Since then, now we need to update and make sure, because we've actually purchased another historical house since we've done it. So there's a lot of sort of, getting around all of those things and just updating everything because we've changed staff and yeah, that's about it. No big disasters, thank goodness. In my 7 years here, we've had issues with HVAC and humidity with I think somebody else, Edith mentioned, water coming down the walls. So those have been taken care of luckily, but it is scary. So looking forward to really getting this tightened up and updated with you all.
I am so happy that you are here. And also I'm looking forward to you having a good, solid plan. Hi, Jenny.
Hi, I'm Jenny Trabulsi, and I am a reference librarian at the Springfield City Library in Springfield, Mass. Prior to becoming a librarian, I ran a disaster recovery program after Hurricane Katrina for 2 years in Mississippi. And then when I started moving into librarian world, I had worked at University of Denver and Denver Public Library, and I served on emergency committees at both of those places. And when I interviewed here in Springfield 5 years ago, I was like, is there any chance to have an emergency committee? And they were like, no. Fast forward 5 years, and we've got emergency planning that had to happen around COVID. We had a coworker was killed, was hit by a car and killed on the way to our parking across a very busy street. We had a fire drill, and half the people went to one place and half the people went other places, and nobody knew if everybody was there. Like nobody even knew where we were supposed to gather. We learned through our union that the union can request to have an emergency planning committee or an emergency committee. So now it's going to be our administrator, our director, our assistant director, our business manager, 2 reference librarians, and we're trying to get somebody in from the circulation staff to also serve on this. And so we will be trying to develop a plan for the central library, which is we own the materials, but the library and museums own the building. It was built in 1912 and it has a lot of problems. And then we're also looking to include the 8 other locations, some of which our most recent one was built because a tornado went through in 2011 and damaged the one that was there. So we rebuilt a new building. So that's where we are. I will say that I know that at least 3 of us are really excited and engaged about this. And I'm really delighted to have this opportunity.
Well, I am so happy that you are here and that you are taking the initiative to make this happen with your union. That's really great. I'm very sorry about your coworker. That was horrifying. But I am very happy that you're going to have a plan now. And last but not least, I see a phone number, but not a name. So if you tell me your name, I think I can put your name in where your phone number is. Okay, well, you are on mute, so I can't hear you, and I don't know your name because I only have your phone number, but welcome. I'm really happy that you are here. And I am very excited about this group. I think it's a really interesting mix of museums and collections. And I'm hearing so many people say that they are motivated, which is thrilling. So I want to address the questions that came up in the discussion for today. Edith wanted to know about how much of the FEMA IS 100, all you have to do is lesson 1. I don't really need you to do miles and miles of it, but
Okay, I wasn't sure.
yeah, I just like, when I do it every couple of years because it's so much alphabet soup. And if you don't use it every day, what's a strike force? What's a task force? What's a strike team? Couldn't tell you right now because I haven't done it in a year or two. I would do it, but when I do it, it's like 90 minutes total to get through the whole thing and get the certificate at the end. So I don't remember how it's structured, but I would say go through till you get the certificate you can put up on your bulletin board.
Oh, because I did the first part and then I got to lesson 2 and it said this will take 30 minutes. And I did that time, I didn't have time to keep going. So I thought, oh,
Yeah.
there's like 5 lessons. So
Yeah, they say 30 minutes, it's less than that really, in my experience.
Okay.
Yeah, but hopefully, and I think that in terms of outside of class reading, that's going to be the biggest commitment. And I wanted to get it out of the way really early so that once we move into next week, which is all about risk assessment, you'll be able to focus all of your energies on risk assessment. Let's see, and Nick asked, this is an excellent question. Within an institution with a small full-time staff, what's the best way to determine roles for each staff person in the ICS? And my thoughts on that, first, I guess I'll say, does anyone else have ideas on that before I start blabbing? And if you do, you can just go ahead and talk. Okay, my thought is I would think about when you're starting out, I would think about who would be the best person for each position. I would think, okay, the head of accounting would be the finance and administration person. And probably the curator or the collections manager would be the incident commander, and work through like that. And once you have figured out the right people and the right personality fit with your existing staff, write it into job descriptions so that in the future, when people move on and find new jobs, you know who's going to step up into that position. But right now, when you're starting, you can just choose. And Robin asked about multiple structures, historic and modern, and how do you approach that? What I would do is make, yes, as you suggest, an umbrella plan, and then each building would get its own section within that plan. A lot of the material will be the same, like the procedures will generally be the same, and the phone numbers will generally be the same. There might be some different location stuff, and different quirks of each building. The important thing to do will be when you do risk assessment, to do the risk assessment exercise for each building to capture all of that information. And then Sarah asked her fascinating question about facility planning. What are the best ways to incorporate design that will make responding to collections emergencies easier? And I did not see that until about 8 o'clock my time this morning. So I am still mulling it over because it's a fascinating question. The other thing I did was pulled out my copy of the guidelines for archival and special collections facilities, which is the Society of American Archivists design guide and technical specifications for building facilities. To my knowledge, there is not something like that in the museum world. But when I'm working with museums, and I default to this a lot of the time because a lot of it is similar. So I'm still mulling that. I think that planning for fire suppression systems is going to be one of your big things, and making sure that your collection storage is not somewhere where it's likely to be vulnerable to water. And if you can plan for pipes not to, except for your sprinkler systems, but if you can plan for general building piping not to run over your collection shelving, that would be helpful. But it's a really cool question. So I'm going to keep thinking about that one. And I'm sure you have thoughts, and I want to hear them from you too. But oh my goodness, we have 10 minutes left. I figured introductions would take up quite a bit of time today, but we're going to just move kind of onto the last thing on my list. I had thought we would do an activity where you got to fill out a worksheet on your planning team, which we are not going to do now because of the time, but I am going to grab, where are you? I'm going to grab the URL and give it to you in case that it is useful. It doesn't have to be, but if it is useful for you to have a worksheet to figure out who would be on the team, there is my worksheet. It's in my Google Drive, and you are welcome to it if it is helpful. And I was going to break us out into breakout rooms to have discussions, and from going forward, we won't have half an hour of introductions. But I think it's really important to hear who everybody is and where you're coming from, and start building a cohort for you all and let me know what's going on. So going forward with a group this big, when we do discussions, we'll break out into breakout rooms, because it's much easier to have a discussion with, 5 people than it is with 15. But for the last 5 minutes or so today, I just want to throw out the question. Some of you already have this under control, but for those of you who don't, how are you going to get people excited about emergency planning and being on your emergency planning team?
Bribery. Said bribery.
Bribery. Nice.
Maybe if we had some statistics or something that we could present that show how important it is to a museum.
That's a good idea. I think you can probably look for disaster stories. I don't know where I would look for statistics. The most recent it is so almost on the tip of my tongue. There was a survey done a couple of years ago through the AIC. Thank you, Sarah. Have a good rest of your day. There was a survey done a couple of years ago for the AIC. I'm going to write down and find it because I have it written down. It's just not in my brain this morning. Oh, the Heritage Health Index. But I'll get the link and send it all to you. And if you don't know the Heritage Health Index, it was a big survey of all kinds of cultural heritage institutions, looking at the health of collections across a wide variety of issues, from do you have an appropriate building? Do you have staff? And one of the things that they had was an emergency plan. And I know there are statistics there about how many museums have emergency plans. It's kind of frightening, actually, how few actually do. Although we've gotten better. It's when I first started doing this was right after Hurricane Katrina, and nobody that I worked with had any kind of an emergency plan. And I'm pretty sure everyone in this room at least has some kind of something in place. So that's huge progress in the last 20 years. Is there anything else anybody has to say before we sign off? Thank you all for being here, and thank you for telling us about yourselves. I am excited to work with you. And if you are working on things over the weekend, need to reach out, you have my contact information. I love to get email. It makes me feel popular. Before next week, answer the week 1 question, which again has slipped my mind, but it is on the portal. Do the readings for next week and watch the lecture for next week. Our big in-class activity a week from today will be working through part of the risk evaluation and planning process documents. It's on the readings. It's also in the lecture, what you should download and bring with you. And we'll just get a little bit of your risk assessment done. Thank you all so much for being here. Oh, wait, let me make sure I didn't miss something important in chat. Oh, Tiffany put the Heritage Health Index link in the chat. So if you are interested in reading that, this will be a great time to go ahead and click that link. Thank you all. This was really fun. A great way to start my Tuesday morning. And we'll see you next week, but I hope I'll hear from you before that.